Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I have a few things to say about natural disasters today, and I begin by acknowledging the devastation to Queensland and New South Wales by what was severe tropical cyclone Alfred, which claimed at least one life and caused serious injuries, including a road collision involving Australian Defence Force personnel during the height of the storm. The storm was remarkable because it hit the heavily populated southeast Queensland area, which is not unprecedented but has not happened for a very long time. What my constituents in Mallee have also found remarkable is that what was meant to be called Cyclone Anthony, for reasons that may be uncontroversial, or maybe they are, to avoid embarrassment to the Prime Minister, the cyclone was renamed Cyclone Alfred. That change has raised the eyebrows of quite a few of my constituents. Had it been Cyclone Peter, would the name have changed? We will never know. My concern today is about the federal emergency management arrangements for regional Australians. And despite a Royal Commission on these matters, we seem to still have inconsistencies in how regional Australians are treated, depending on the type of disaster and depending on the state they live in. That is why, as the member for Mallee and North West Victoria, ravaged by bushfires over the Christmas-New Year period in the Grampians and then across the Little Desert region, my constituents are also raising their eyebrows or even expressing their unhappiness, and I think that's putting it mildly, that they are not getting the same treatment as those in Queensland. Bushfires in the Grampians region began in December of 2024, resulting in a period of evacuation and closure of towns to tourists. But Category D funding under the combined federal-state disaster recovery funding arrangements was not announced until the 11th of March, almost 3 months later. Before I go into the detail, let me put on record my appreciation to the Minister for Emergency Management, who made herself available during the Grampians and Little Desert bushfires and worked constructively with me on many of the matters I am raising today. The Albanese Labor Government has been utterly incompetent in its handling of communities like Halls Gap in my electorate affected by bushfires. Disaster recovery funding arrangements, or the DRFAs for short, require a Premier or Chief Minister to write to the Prime Minister seeking DRFA support. When flooding hit Townsville earlier this year, Queensland Premier David Crisafulli was very quick in seeking DRFA support and got it within weeks. Despite my repeated public calls and a letter to the Premier and Prime Minister about the Grampians fires, it took 3 months for equivalent DRFA funding to come their way, and I say equivalent loosely. For Grampians communities, particularly Halls Gap, who lost their peak tourist season and in some cases 1/3 of their annual income, the critical question has been financial support for lost income. As I've been saying, and if time permits, I'll return to the topic of insurance, businesses have been unable to afford or secure business interruption insurance due to fire, hence why they have turned to the DRFA. I have to say I was disappointed that ABC Central Victoria threw the question at me, shouldn't those businesses just pay for it themselves rather than, insurance for lost income? It illustrates how disconnected the ABC has become from regional Australia. Fire insurance is not that easy to come by. Insurance companies run a mile from risk, even though that is their job. Flood-affected Townsville businesses are eligible for concessional loans of up to $250,000 and concessional loans to support recovery and rebuilding to cover, among other things, loss of income and continuity of operations. Essential working capital loans are also available up to $100,000 to help businesses cover costs like salaries, wages, creditors, rents and rates. Now, I don't know how much of that is a state government initiative, how much is DRFA, but it's the outcome that matters and the inconsistencies. I'll come to what the Albanese government has offered Grampian businesses in a moment, But remember those figures, $250,000 for Townsville flood-affected businesses in concessional loans and $100,000 in working capital loans. And for those affected by Cyclone Alfred, the same disaster assistance loans of $250,000 and essential working capital loans of up to $100,000 are available. So in Queensland, under the LNP, the same outcome for flood-affected businesses that lost income or in hardship due to natural disaster. What has the Albanese government offered Halls Gap, Grampians and Western Victoria fire-affected businesses? A business bushfire recovery grant of, wait for it, $5,000. That's it. A business recovery advisory service that apparently they're spending somewhere in the vicinity of $20-odd million on. Who knows how that will operate? No $250,000 low-interest disaster assistance loan or $100,000 essential capital working loan. Why not? Under the former coalition government in 2020, we provided Victorian bushfire concessional loans of up to $500,000 to those that had, among other things, a significant loss of income due to bushfires that started on the 21st of November 2019. Did Premier Allen, in this instance, simply not ask for support, that kind of support from the Prime Minister? We will never know. Plainly, the support is not the same for Victorians faced by bushfire as opposed to Queenslanders faced with flood and cyclone. Either all disasters are equal, or some disasters are more equal than others, or all Australians are equal but some are more equal than others. How can you read it any other way? All I am asking for today is a fair go for all Australians affected by natural disasters. I want to go back to insurance. Insurance costs for some Halls Gap businesses have almost quadrupled since the Pomona fires in February 2024, with one business paying $55,000 for public liability insurance, which even then does not cover external fire and does not provide business interruption insurance. There are 120 businesses, or there were, that simply cannot get insurance in Halls Gap, even though there is no instance in history where fire has struck the Halls Gap township itself. I am working continuously with locals, the insurance industry and my coalition colleagues to look at solutions to this emerging wicked problem. Under the Albanese Labor Government, insurance costs across the nation have risen 35%. These fires, combined with the impact of recent wildfires in Los Angeles on global reinsurance markets, may combine to push insurance premiums up further and make policies even less accessible. Insurance pricing requires accurate data regarding risks and mitigation strategies undertaken at the local level. But in Victoria, there is no transparency around the performance of Forest Fire Management Victoria and other responsible agencies. No transparency against mitigation targets. There is market failure in bushfire insurance for Halls Gap. As in other areas of public policy, market failure activates potential government intervention. The Australian Reinsurance Pool Corporation was expanded in 2022 by the former coalition government to provide insurance for insurers of cyclone risk in northern Australia without the profit margin of the private market and with a risk guarantee provided by the government. While it's early days, there are signs the pool is starting to address its aims. It is time to look at this model in other Australian contexts. Spending in Halls Gap has dropped by 63% since fires began, compared to the same period last year. At the 1 month mark, $13 million in business earnings has been lost. Can you imagine the desperation of those businesses? As the fires have persisted, an estimated further $8 million more has been lost. The Grampians typically attracts between 1.3 and 1.7 million visitors annually. However, cancellations are now extending through to May 2025, and the projections of loss in that region are between $34 and $103 million over the year. The sustainability of small businesses in the Grampians is my focus, and I plan to keep fighting for it.
Are there any statements? Can I call the member for Fadden? Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and I take this opportunity to rise to speak in relation to Tropical Cyclone Alfred and then ex-Tropical Cyclone